Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter here for the next 20 minutes. Today we are going to be discussing donations and prepping for the new year. First thing we want to talk about in donations, as I mentioned, is there is no end of year procedure or process that you have to do within the donations module. Now, you can, however, like I mentioned, make some changes in preparation for the new year itself. So if you use giver numbers, we're going to talk about stopping the use of giver numbers, reassigning giver numbers, and then we're also going to go over printing labels if you want to for those new giver numbers or getting different reports out. Now, this document also on pages 5 and 6 goes over entering campaigns and entering prepaids. That I did last week. So if that is something you're interested in, I did a webinar on that last week. I kind of split this into two separate events. So you can head out to the New Year Prep page to watch that, or you can go to the Resource Center. It's in both places. So if you need more information on prepaids and pledges, check out the event from last week out on our website. So a couple things about giver numbers. Giver numbers are completely optional. Some people call them envelope numbers. The default is to be called giver numbers. Giving is always attached to the individual. Okay, it's not on the giver number itself. So the nice thing about that is you can go in and you can change people's giver numbers technically whenever you want. Typically it's done on a year-to-year basis, but you can change those giver numbers however you see fit or however you need, and it's not going to affect the person's donations at any point in time. Okay, so just so everybody's clear on that. Now, one of the positive things though about the giver numbers is that even though they're not required, it can really make entering donations easier. That's why a lot of people still utilize them. Along with making donation entry easier, it can also really help if you do envelope boxes. So that's a really popular thing from years ago. A lot of churches I talked to, well, I wouldn't say a lot. I'd say several churches I talked to still use the envelope boxes. So if that's something you utilize, using a giver number would be great because then it can match what's on that box as well. Francis, I see your message. Try to refresh your browser. That's probably going to help because the screen is coming through clear on my end. So if the refresh doesn't work, you might need to close out and come back in. Okay, something else to mention before you make big changes in your database, you always want to make a backup. So anytime you're going to be changing giver numbers or making any type of mass edits to a database, you always want to back up the data. So on the opening screen of Church Windows, as a little safeguard, feel free to come in here through administration and go to backup data. You can back up your data as often as you want. A lot of people will say, well, how often should I do it? And my response is you should back up your data as often as you don't want to have to re-enter something. Okay, so keep that in mind. Specifically, any mass database changes, back up your data. Okay. All right, so down to number 1, let's talk about stopping the use of giver numbers. So if someone has a giver number and they leave your church for whatever reason, you want to take that giver number off of them, okay? That way the number's available to then use for someone else. Now, up at the top here under givers, the best screen to make changes to giver numbers is going to be this Manage Number screen. The advantage of the Manage Number screen is that it allows you to specify based on date when you want a number to start and when you want a number to stop or end, okay? So with that in mind, I have a couple people here as an example. If I come up here to the top left and I check this inactive box, it's then going to include any givers that are currently inactive and have a giver number. Okay, so as you can see, we have Dylan and we have Caroline. They're both in this reddish font, which tells us that they're inactive. All right, so we definitely need to remove the number off them. So they've left the church for whatever reason, they've passed away, they've transferred their membership, so be it. We're going to free up numbers 21 and 18 so we can give them to someone else. Typically, to end a number, you want to use an end date. Okay, so this means I want the history of Dylan having number 21 since 2013, but I want that number to end at a certain time, so then the day after I can assign it to someone else. Okay, so you can simply click in this end date box and you can type in when you want the number to end. You could do any date after 2/20/2013. I'm going to go ahead and just do the last day of this year. Okay, simply type it right in or use the calendar. Now, down here on Caroline, if you come over to the right, you have some other options if you hit the minus sign. You can stop using the giver number, which means you can fill in the date here, or you can simply delete the number. If you choose to delete giver number 18 here for Caroline, it is going to completely remove the history of her having number 18 since the 1st of 2011. You can do that if you wish. The software will allow you, but if you want to keep a history of who had what number and when, then you don't want to go with the delete option. You actually want to go with the option to end the number with a date. Okay, so now that these two numbers are ended for 12/31/22, you have the ability to now reuse these numbers as of 1/1/2023. Okay, so the number was used on these people within this time frame, but it's available the day after. All right, so that's how to stop the use of giver numbers. Now let's talk about reassigning a giver number. I really like to click these column headers up here at the top because it then allows me to sort my list by that column header. So if I click the number column header, it's going to rebuild my list of people, and instead of being sorted alphabetically, it's going to be sorted by giver number. Okay, so this is a really easy way to see on the fly what numbers aren't in use for reassignment purposes. Okay, so if I want to reassign a few giver numbers just for a couple people, I can do that right here on this manage number screen. So let's look at Lucy here. She's had number 4 since 2011. Let's say I want her to actually have number 1 starting in 2023. If that's the case, it's very simple to do. I can come over here to the right and I can hit the little green, or I'm sorry, the blue plus sign, and I can put in the new number I want her to have. Now, the key with assigning new numbers is you have to make sure that number isn't being used by anyone else for the date I want to assign the number onto Lucy. So as you look through the list, currently no one has number 1. And if I come up here to the top right and I check the future box, no one has number 1 starting in the future. So 1 is available for me to put on Lucy. So back up here to Lucy, I'm going to go over to the right, hit the little blue plus sign. I'm going to type in number 1, and I want the number to start for the new year. So I'm going to do 2023, and I'm going to say OK. Now, I still have current checked, and as you can see on Lucy, she's still number 4, and she's number 4 through 12/31/2022. But as soon as I come up here and I check future, I have another line for Lucy showing me her new number, number 1, starting 1/1/2023. All right, so reassignment is really easy as long as that new number you're wanting to assign isn't in use by anyone else. All right, same thing down here for Carolyn. If I highlight Carolyn, I can come over to the right, I can hit the blue plus sign, I can give her number 2, and I can have that start 2023, say OK. It's going to rebuild my screen, and now I'm going to see Carolyn here twice. I have her with her original number 5, ending the last day of the year, and then her new number starting 1/1/2023. Okay? I hope that's clear. All right, the next option I want to talk about is the auto assign. This can be a little tricky, but I want to go through it with you guys. Take most of the time today to talk about this. The key thing to remember with the auto assign feature is if you're going to do this, you want to make sure that you don't have any future numbers set for anyone, okay? So anyone who doesn't need a giver number for next year, you need to make sure you get rid of. So that's what we did first, and the numbers on those people who don't need a number next year, so the people who've left. And then you also don't want any future numbers assigned, because if you do the reassignment for the first of the year and you already have a couple people with future numbers, you're going to get number duplications and it's not going to work very well. Okay, so if we left Carolyn in there with number 2, for example, starting 1/1/2023, you would have a double of the number 2 when you go to do the auto reassignment. Okay, I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So let's go up here to auto assign number. I'm on page 2 if you guys are following along. And all this message tells you is that while this screen is open, you'll have exclusive access to the auto assign and manage numbers. No one else will be able to use these functions while this screen is open. So if you are on a network, just keep in mind that while you're in here, auto assign and manage numbers can only be the only one using. That's all that message means. So just say okay through that. All right, so here is the reassign giver number screen. This is a little different from past versions. I can't remember when the screen updated exactly, but get the document and follow along because the document is very, very clear if you need help with this, okay? So top left, this is your filtering drop box. This is going to show you or give you an option to toggle who is showing up down here at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so if it's blue, that means it's showing. If it's gray, that means it's not showing. Okay, so right now in my screen below, we're seeing givers with current giver numbers. We're also seeing givers with no current giver numbers. We're also seeing children included as well. We're not seeing inactive givers with no numbers, and we're not seeing membership groups, and we're not seeing givers whose last number ended on 12/31/22. So any of those people that you went in and you gave that end date to, that you stopped, those people are going to be omitted from the screen by this not showing. Okay? So play with this, all right? Make a backup, come in here and get these settings correctly to who you need to assign numbers to. This is going to be a typical setup that people are going to go with, okay? Or a lot of people are going to get rid of kids too, but depends on your denomination if you want kids to have giver numbers or not, okay? So that's your setup screen. Next, you have a search box. If you need to look for a specific person, you can use this. Over here to the top right, this is telling you how this screen is sorted by. Right now, it's sorted by giver number. When I redo my giver numbers, or I should say when most of the people I talk to, they want their giver numbers assigned in alphabetical order. So I'm actually going to change my sort to name to give me alpha order, okay? Now, the people in green are the people that are selected right now. As you can see here, these people are being omitted. That's why they're not in green, and that's why they're not checked, because they're not fitting the filter selection that you have right here. Okay? So I'm going to check this box to only show selected, so I only see my green people in the list, my people that are going to be getting a new number. And then right here, you can choose starting with. So with my people in this list, what number do I want to assign them? What is my starting point? And for this example, I'm going to go with number 1. Okay. Over here to the right, I'm going to hit my assign selected button when I'm ready. And then over here to the right, even further, is your new number start date. Okay, so when do you want these new numbers to take effect? By default, it's always going to jump to the first of the new year. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as is. And then I'm going to hit assign selected. It's going to tell me numbers will be assigned to all selected or checked givers currently visible in the grid. They will be sorted by name. Okay, and I'm going to say assign. So now when I look at my new number starting 1/1/2023, I'm in numerical order starting at 1 and working my way up. Okay, and then here is their current number through 12/31/2022. All right. If this all looks good for you, down at the bottom you have a save and close. We'll go ahead and do that. So that's how simple it is to do your auto reassignment. It's going to ask you if you want to print a report of new numbers. You can say yes if you want to print it out and double check it. It's simply your list giver numbers report. You can go ahead and hit print. And eventually the preview will pop up. There it is. All right. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So that is how to do your reassignment. Now you can come in here too and you can print this report. As you can see, it's numbers current as of the new year, but then you can change the sort if you want to. Some people like to print it out in current or number order. Some people like to print it out in giver name order. It's completely up to you, whatever easiest for your counters, right? All right, so let's close out of here. Now, once you get those numbers reassigned, a lot of people like to print out labels, okay? They like to get labels printed out with the name and what their future giver number is going to be. All right, let's walk you through that. So up here under Reports and Export, you're going to go to Lists and Labels. Here's that list giver numbers report we just saw. Down here is your Labels button. First thing you want to do here is hit the Edit People Selection Criteria button. And over here to the right, I only want to include people that have a giver number. So I'm going to uncheck the box that said include those without number. And then down here at the bottom right, you can say OK. Now, if you have a specific giver number range you only wanted to print, you could adjust that range in here and it would only print labels for the people that fit in that range. Okay. For now, I'm just going to grab everybody and I'm going to say OK. Now, this next step is really important. If you're wanting to print future numbers, you have to go over here to the right and change this date field to use giver numbers current as of the new year, which is the first day of our new numbers. So you're going to put in 1/1/2023 in there for this example, okay? Next thing you're going to want to do is go up to your Sort tab, and then you need to specify what order you want these labels in. Because I reassign them in alpha and numerical order, it's not really going to matter whether you choose giver number or name. So I'm just going to leave it on giver number. And then I'm going to hit the next button. And that is going to take me to step 2. And remember, when you run reports in Church Windows, step 1 is always going to be who you want. That's your criteria. And then step 2 is going to be where you create the layout of that report or of that label. All right. So here on step 2, I need to create a label layout that includes my giver number field. So if you're following along bottom of page 4, this is where you'll do that. So I am using a template Avery 5160. So this is the layout I want. I'm going to hit the new button and then just verify that's here, hit finish, and then it's going to open up my report designer. Okay, so this is, if you're familiar with Publisher, it's very similar to that with the text boxes, but I'm going to scooch this down a little bit to make room for my label field. For me, I like to just click on it with my mouse so it selects the field with these little blue boxes, and then you can click and drag. I'm not good at the clicking and dragging, so on my keyboard, I actually use the directional keys. And I just tapped the down arrow once, and that put that down here on my bottom margin. And then up here, I'm going to slide in my label number field. So over here on the right, you're going to scroll down, and you're looking for, oops, sorry guys, you're looking for this membership field box. I'm going to click and hold on that, and I'm going to drag that over, and I'm going to drop the box exactly where I want that number to print on my label. Soon as I drop that box, it's going to then tell me, okay, you picked a membership field. What membership field do you want printed in that space? So this is where I'm looking for my giver number field. So I'm choosing giver number, and I'm saying, okay. So now I have 2 fields on my label. I have my giver number field, and then I have my mailing label and current address field. If you just want name and label, you can delete this field and just grab a names field or a mailing label field over here if you don't need the address. All right. But I want the address for this example, so I'm going to do save as, and I'm going to call this mailing label address with giver number. And I always like to name my report layouts exactly what's on the report layout. That way I know what's going to be included, because I can reuse this regardless of what criteria I pick back on step 1. I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to close. And now back here on step 2, here's my new label layout, and then I have to specify one label per. I'm going to choose giving unit for this because I'm doing giver number labels, and then lower right, I'm going to hit print. And that is going to give me my Avery standard layout, which has my 3 across, 10 down to fit my sheet of labels. And then along with their name, I have their number, and these are their numbers for 2023 because I put that date range in back on step 1.